With the same vein of questioning we had in the first panel, we'll try and complete the latter half of the questions that we were not even able to get to in the first panel. But we'll begin again by introducing our new panel and giving them a chance to give us a 2-minute introduction to themselves. So we'll begin with Mr. Dennis Carlone, Mr. Nadeem Mazen, Mr. Gary Mello, Ms. Lesley Phillips, Sam Seidel, and Elie Yarden, who you may all be familiar with, and I hope that in half an hour you're much more familiar with. So let's begin with Dennis Carlone. The question I'd like you to take 2 minutes to address is, what are your most important energy and environmental priorities for Cambridge, and why?
Hi everyone, my name is Dennis Carlone. I'm an architect and urban designer, and I did the East Cambridge Riverfront Plan for the City of Cambridge over a 30-year period. That's the Leechmere Canal area down to the Longfellow Bridge. And that project embodies much of what I believe the city needs to do, and that's looking at the whole picture, including all the elements that are important, and obviously environment is at the top of the list. I was one of the promoters of the net zero emissions Connolly petition. I was the architect urban designer on the team. I supported it for many reasons, primarily because my sister was flooded out by Hurricane Sandy, and I saw what she went through, and I wouldn't wish it on anyone. It's just common sense. So when you look at the environment, which has historically been at the low end of the totem pole, we now need to raise that dramatically to the upper end, because we're at the point where things are at a critical location. And again, Sandy is not so far away from us. Just like one needs to incorporate neighborhood issues into development, one needs to incorporate nature's issues into development. I did the master plan along the Little River for the redevelopment of that area, from Arthur D. Little's buildings that had been flooded out to redirecting it to open it up more back to the natural state. And I thought until recently that was a very positive step, and now I realize we have to do much more. That includes education, it includes a seat at the table, and again, it includes looking at a total master plan for the city that analyzes all the issues in a clear and fundamental way and comes up with a solution that really highlights all the important elements in our lives. And that's what I do, and that's what I insist that I'll continue doing. So thank you.
That was so close to 2 minutes, it was scary.
I have been called that.
So our next speaker will be Mr. Mazen.
Yes, Nadeem Mazen. I came to MIT. I came to Cambridge for MIT, and then stayed to start small businesses in the city. When we see questions on the list here about businesses having trouble recycling, I have businesses. I've run into that trouble recycling. I've been in the community as we try to cope with the climate change reality that we're staring down the barrel at. I appreciated a lot of Dennis's answer, and very much promote the need for a master plan that addresses the comprehensive set of stakeholders, nature's needs, as he said, as part of the development process. I think that's a no-brainer. I think we also need to go beyond just talking about task forces and beyond just talking about, of course, no one's going to come up here and say, I don't support the environment, right? But the question is, who systematically attacks the issues that are at the forefront of our minds, are proposed by Green Cambridge and Friends of Green Cambridge? Who is going out and finding solutions? I like Dennis, one of the supporters, not an official proponent, but one of the supporters of the net zero Connolly petition. I made the whiteboard animation that you may have seen, explaining how it works and showing how, if you actually read these petitions, these types of solutions are possible, right? And went through weeks and months of public comment and debate with many of the stakeholders in the issue to remind people that, hey, if you haven't read the solutions being proposed by Green Cambridge or others, that it's going to be very difficult to talk brass tacks. So I think I'm for a citywide plan, yes, but I'm also for a type of dialogue where analytical approaches like mine can be met by analytical approaches from those who maybe don't want to see a particular course of action, and we can talk about what's working and what's not working for various stakeholders instead of dancing around the outside and using vague language to promote vague task forces over a vague timeline. Right? I think that's what we've had for maybe generations on the green issue, and it's something that we need to come back away from as we find concrete solutions. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. And now we'll hear from Mr. Mello.
How do you do, ladies and gentlemen? My name is Gary Mello. The theme tonight is think globally, act locally. While I intend to act locally as your counselor, by not being a hypocrite, by not being a buzzword environmentalist. I know that Mr. Pitkin's in the crowd tonight. Mr. Pitkin, last council session, last Monday night, you got up and spoke on the topics such as global warming, sea level rise. All of them are valid concerns. Problem is you didn't hang around. Shortly after you left, the city council put as a front burner item obtaining and maintaining parking for municipal employees in Area 4. Well, the minute you leave the room, they're not environmentalists anymore. They're taking care of their own. There was talk about how much we should be paying for parking space for municipal employees. There was, your darlings Minka and Henrietta and Craig, who say the right things at the right time. When the time comes down to it, they take care of themselves and they take care of their own. Councilor Mello will not take care of the people who work for the city any differently than he takes care of those who live here. There's no difference between the employees of Cambridge. They're not entitled to special privileges, special parking and such, than anybody else who works here. So I don't have a whole lot of time left. I'm the guy who wants us to switch over to MWRA water permanently. Maybe you should want to talk to me after we're done with this panel.
Thank you very much. And next we'll hear from Lesley Phillips.
Hi, I'm Lesley Phillips. I want to thank the organizers for putting this event together. I've been a resident of Cambridge for about going on 32 years. I came here almost 32 years to attend graduate school, and like so many other new Canterbridgians and now old Canterbridgians, I never left. My pre-Harvard career was in the law. And it's a while ago, but I will say that it was a student project, but my senior paperwork in law school was in a legislative writing seminar, and I authored model legislation on effluent charges. That was one of the hotter issues of the day. My post-Harvard degree work is as a clergy person, and those of you who have attended other forums know that I've really kept religion and politics very, very separately. But I am a Unitarian Universalist minister, and while we don't have a statement of faith, we have a statement of principles, 10 suggestions, not 10 commandments, and two of the important ones are respect for the interdependent web of existence and listening to the rhythms of nature. So all of this is, really deep inside my heart and my soul. And I'll also share that probably the top of the top 10 Unitarian jokes of all time is, what do you Unitarians believe in? Answer, recycling. So I'm also the elected representative from most of Cambridge on the Democratic State Committee, and have served for about 10 years as chair of the Ward 6 Democratic Committee, where we used to put on forums like this in this room every year for a couple of obvious reasons, two of whom are sitting here, and one is at the school committee forum. We're not doing that this year, so I'm glad others are now using this space. I think this is the first time in this space for you all. So environment, of course, it's important. It's something that I don't think anybody in Cambridge is going to disagree about. The how-to is probably more important than the why, and we're going to get to a lot of the how-to as we go on this evening. In the absence of time, Peter, I'll pass this to my colleague.
I have to say, this panel is remarkably accurate at speaking in 120-second bites, so I congratulate you all. Next, Mr. Sam Seidel.
Thank you, and thank you all for being here, and thanks to Green Cambridge for pulling this together. This is, of course, one of the most important forums that we have the chance to participate in because of the topic and the topic area. My name is Sam Seidel, and I am running to return to the Cambridge City Council. I served on the council 2 terms and loved it so much I want to get back. But no, actually, the truth of the matter is there's so many issues before the city right now that I do believe that my experience, my knowledge, and my voice will be very helpful in moving those issues along. Let me tell you about some of the things on my list. When I go out and door knock, I talk about 3 things. I talk about housing, which I think is crucial in the city right now. I talk about education, because education is on everybody's mind all the time, and correctly so. And I talk about the environment. And I talk about the environment because I think the environment is truly the biggest challenge that we all face, and that the next generation faces, and that the generation after that faces for the next 100 years at least. And I say 100 years because if we haven't figured it out in 100 years, we're in really, really bad shape. So I just want you to know that when I talk to everybody, I say the environment is up there. Let me tell you about some of the things that I would like to do if I'm on the council. I think the work that created the Net Zero petition was excellent. Many of the people are here in this room, and I want to acknowledge them all, including all the great work they did to create it. It was exactly the right way to ask the question. It's now gotten bounced to a task force, but I actually agree that's the right way to do this. There are so many questions that we have to figure out. We have to move forward on it. I think the task force will produce good results, and then the council needs to take those and work with those. There's a lot more work to do there. I think on transit and transportation, bicycles is our next big infrastructure investment. I really do believe that. I ride my bike constantly year-round. Bikes are on everybody's list. You go into any room, no matter what age or what they do. I've already run out of time, so I'm going to, what's that?
You'll have another chance.
I'll have another chance, so thank you all.
And finally, I'm proud to introduce Mr. Elie Yarden.
Good evening. I, if elected, will be the only non-Democratic Party member in the City Council. I say that advisedly. I've known the City Council for more than 20 years and know how it operates. I've been an activist for a long time. I'm also 90 years old, and if I began talking about myself, including the past 20 years of Cambridge politics, I would take all night. So I'll confine my attention to a few things. Firstly, I would like to read to you the slogan, perhaps, but it's something which I am putting on my literature. The most remarkable feature of this historical moment on Earth is not that we are on the way to destroying the world. We've actually been on that way for quite a while. It is that we are beginning to wake up as from a millennia-long sleep to a whole new relationship to our world, to ourselves and each other. I'm quoting Joanna Lacey. Joanna Lacey is not a poet. She's a systems analyst working in the field of complex systems and understands the relationships which led to the present state of affairs. When we speak about catastrophic climate change, we should remember always that we're talking about anthropogenic climate change, namely climate change brought about by human institutions and human behaviors. So why is it that the politics lags so far behind the public consciousness? That is one of the important questions. Why is it that the public has to lead? And why is it that government sets up a wall between itself and the governed? And one of the answers to that is to be found in the work of a fellow Green Rainbow Party member in Rhode Island who said, the first step in the struggle to defeat anthropogenic climate change is the eradication of poverty. It's hard for some people to see that relationship, but it's a primary relationship, because as long as we have a disenfranchised population, lower class, to use the terms that go back to 1952, As long as we have that, we are not politically equipped to deal with the present situation.
Thank you so much, Ellie. Really appreciate it. Excellent. Well, those were all quite interesting opening statements. So what we're going to do is proceed in your handy-dandy pamphlet about the questions. We're going to be about halfway in to the section on public transport. And I'm going to bounce around between different candidates and ask them questions. They will get 1 minute to address those. So what I'd like to do is start with Mr. Seidel and ask, what have you done and what would you do to improve public transportation and encourage Canterburyans to use public transportation?
Thank you for the question. And I'm just looking to see where it's actually located in our little pamphlet here, but it's on page 5. So here's the thing on public transit. I think that one of the most interesting moments I had out on the campaign trail, and I, like Dennis Carlone on the panel here, have a background in urban planning. So and you'll notice that we're sort of dressed similarly. I just want to acknowledge the sort of the planner. Yeah, exactly. But you know, so I think we think of cities in similar ways. And one of the most interesting moments I had on the campaign trail was knocking on the door of a guy who actually has a background in transportation and transit planning. And he said this to me, which I thought was good. And I'm just actually going to stand up because I can't miss an opportunity to stand up in front of a crowd. He said that actually saying to me, you need to remember, we need to remember, the council needs to remember, the city needs to remember that in the eyes of the MBTA, that serves the greater Boston region with public transit, Cambridge has got to be in the top 3 or 4 communities in terms of who are important to them. And again, I'm too long-winded. I am too long-winded. There's more we can ask from the T is the closing line of that statement.
Very good. Thank you so much. Next, I'd like to go to Mr. Mello and ask the next question in that sequence, which is, how do you think the city is doing at enforcing the anti-idling law, especially around schools and in high-traffic areas like the squares? What would you do to improve the enforcement?
Well, once upon a time, I drove a truck, and I learned that when you park and when you put the truck in loading platforms, it's very uneven on how it's enforced, whether you shut down or not. It's left up pretty much to location itself. I'm not aware of any widespread enforcement of the idling laws. Diesel costs $4 a gallon. If you can't make these dummies shut it down on their own, I really don't have a lot to offer. However, I am opposed to the imposition, the establishment of a idling police force, because I'm worried that it will become a Jobs for Pals program.
The next question I would like to ask Mr. Yarden. Ellie, I have a question for you, and it has to do with leaf blowers. And the question is, would you support banning leaf blowers outright? And if you don't support banning them outright, what would you do to protect residents and our children from these devices?
This is precisely the kind of question that I do not hope to address as a city councillor. That's the job of management. One of the jobs of management is to protect the public. And I would insist that management, we have a city manager system, eliminate it. The council should tell them to eliminate it, and that's it. Who needs it? There are too many people out of work. There are too many people who know how to use rakes. I need physical exercise. Why use blowers? Put some balls on them.
Thank you very much. The next question I'd like to address to Ms. Phillips, and that's, would you support additional funding to increase the participation rate of city residents and businesses, in recyclings? And what kind of programs would you recommend to do that?
Absolutely, and it should be not just for businesses, it should be for multi-occupancy buildings as well. Ever since we instituted the bins and toters, blue bins and blue toters program, the usage in multi-occupant buildings, I live in a 36-unit condo, has been very, very irregular. We have a wonderful rate of recycling citywide, but there's still, walk up and down any residential street on collection nights, you can see there's still way too much trash put out. As far as businesses, as in a number of environmental areas, we need a combination of both incentives and disincentives, monetary and other incentives for doing it right, and a realistic and enforceable system of fines for not doing it right. It's very simple.
Thank you very much. The next question goes, these guys are great. They're all under a minute, and they're self-editing, so it's a very good thing. I hope I don't jinx this now. The next question goes to Mr. Mazen. There's a simple no-cost solution for enforcing commercial recycling would be to charge fines to non-compliant businesses. Would you support that and make your argument one way or the other?
Yes. Brief.
Okay, why?
And I think I can bleed forward and backwards through these other questions in the order, which are also easily defended. Yes, as a business owner, I came in and I had a recent opportunity to visit the Cedella recycling plant and asked, with such a great recycling percentage and all you're doing to try to increase that percentage, how come I as a business haven't been connected up to other businesses to have some kind of cost-effective solution? Why do I have to go and pay an arm and a leg just to recycle, which is the right thing to do anyway? I think it's a no-brainer. The answer is kind of like, I'm juggling a lot here, and the city's juggling a lot here, but there are some simple-to-implement solutions, like fines for traffic, like fines, as a biker, I should have been fined in my early 20s, right? And many of the problems we're having as a society now just have to do with effective fines, effective infrastructure, and lower cost solutions for the things that we all agree should already happen. I don't think any business person is going to say, I would not like to recycle. They're going to say, please help me recycle.
Thank you very much. And the last question, well, in this round, I'm going to put the last question to Mr. Carlone. And this is pretty much the last question in the list, and it has to do with the following. What, in the new age of green development, businesses may come along with innovative business models that don't necessarily fit into the established licensing procedures. What do you see the city doing, and as a city councilor, how can you help these new ingenious businesses to succeed?
Again, I'm Dennis Carlone, and any innovation, any new innovation has to go through a period of testing, just like new drugs need to be tested. And unfortunately, most cities are very conservative. I can tell you in my business in construction, it's the same thing. It's test, test, test until you prove it. And it just seems to me that any aggressive city in environmental matters would take it on as part of a task study and have it researched. And especially if the results seem extremely positive, it just like with the drug, it can be fast-tracked. And I think Cambridge wants that. I know the leaders want that, and certainly many of us want that. So I think that's very doable. And it's results. If the results are there, it can be forced down the system.
Thank you.